Welcome back to another episode in my survival build world, where today we will start chipping away at finishing my haunted house. My goal for today is to first get the grand entrance installed and afterwards hopefully get at least started on the front yard here, as I do not like leaving it on the flat stone like this. In case you missed it and you are interested, it would be great if you checked out my previous video that explains my thoughts and process for designing the manor. Otherwise, I'm going to keep this one snappy, so I am all set to get interior designing, and here we go. I am not great at interiors. I've mentioned many times that I am not great at interiors, but within my effort to be better at interiors, I think I've done a pretty cool job today. There's not too much beyond here yet, just a solid kickoff for me to build off of later, but also it's a great entry hall for what will hopefully eventually be a manor with many halls to get lost in. Of course, the marquee attraction is the bright chandelier that greets you as you walk in. Does a great job filling the center, but unfortunately doesn't light the room well. Thus, there's a ton of hidden lights in the carpets, in the paintings, and the floorboards, all carefully curated to give a perfect low light experience in here. Speaking of the paintings, I figured, especially the new paintings, were perfect for the aesthetic I am going for here to fill in some of that wall space. I like the old paintings, especially from a nostalgia perspective, but usually they're either way too saturated or the limited amount created a bit too much repetition, but with these new ones that don't look like a bowl of cereal, they create a much nicer, cleaner aesthetic for my walls. On the back here is a little board featuring a mounted dragon head, because why not? I have the data pack. Actually, there are no data packs right now because they're broken, but typically on the server we have the data pack to add head drops to all mobs, and I have a pretty big collection I am interested in displaying, which Monster Hunter themed base gives a unique opportunity to do so, and the dragon is a good special main lobby piece. Another failure of not having data packs, I wanted to use a posed armor stand to actually have it, on the wall and scale it a little bigger, but whatever, it's fine for now. While we are looking back this way, you can see there are a couple balcony halls, inaccessible currently, but eventually they will be a direct path to the balcony out front, and they look cool. Last notable thing, of course, though, well, other than the fires, the grand, not so grand staircase. Just the last thing to make this thing feel like a real fancy manor, and the view you get as you walk in is just perfect, with the staircase and the various pathways being immediately presented to you. All done while maintaining the original angled build that I started with. That's about it for this part of the video. Of course, not a lot of meat here, so I'm going to go ahead and move right along to get started on the front yard. Make the whole thing a little more presentable. I don't know how much I'll get done. I have a good few days before I want this video out, so with what time I have, while I also prepare for the holidays, I'm going to get as much done as possible, and so I'll see you in a bit. Okay, here we are. I think I got quite a satisfactory amount done here. Of course, only half of the courtyard is done, but I also expect the empty half to have a different aesthetic compared to what we have here. As you can see though, I put a quite difficult challenge onto myself for the courtyard, as it is built entirely devoid of color, save for two exceptions: the water, which I have a solution to talk about later, and the red gem, which I don't have an explanation for other than it's an interesting oddity that weirdly brings together the lack of color. The no color thing is something I've been wanting to do for a long time now, like a really long time, and with this project, this is my first time creating a sort of proof of concept for the idea. It is clearly primarily made up of blocks from the new Pale Garden update, but there's definitely enough variety from this palette now to make something a lot more elaborate than this while keeping it desaturated. Anyways, this part of the courtyard features a big raised platform made to be an overlook into the world, which follows the shape of the waterway, which that follows the shape of the well centerpiece. It took me a bit to figure out what exactly I wanted here. I tried a bench with either a tree growing or a statue as the centerpiece, but that would block the red gem, and the footprint here is a bit too small for making those options an actual cool centerpiece. So talking it over with my buddy, he recommended adding a piece that is related to my next secret project, which brought me to adding a related to the next secret project void hole that has something staring back at you. And I thought, as an oddity humor piece, it would in fact be fun to have a well that collects from the void. Next notable thing to look at is the canopy bridge, which was really fun and challenging to design, at the angle of course. I really wanted the hanging signs as a detail block to work, but I think they just barely don't. But they're still fine enough to keep. There's just too much of a gap between them, unfortunately, but otherwise as a big open bridge with a roof, I'm really happy with the shape, especially the roof shape. The pale hanging moss is great as a weathering block in detail, and there's some water grates at the bottom to allow the water to flow under, which is kind of the point of having a bridge here. And in the middle, there's this cool ceiling lamp. The fence is cool, a lot of trial and error to get this thing's shape right. I wanted to go for like a gothic Victorian kind of style fence, but that requires patterns and stuff that I'm pretty sure are impossible at the scale, but that's alright. I got this design I'm really happy with, and the shelves, even though they effectively defeat the purpose of a fence like this, they keep the fun shaping and fence look, while blocking out a lot of the outside world, which is kind of an essential part to keep the desaturated illusion alive. Come here. Last couple things to point out, just a fun archway entrance. The path leads to the front door now, and there's a path here that circles around a second centerpiece that hasn't been filled in because, like the other one, I didn't know what to do with it, and unlike the other centerpiece, I still don't know what to do. I have to be careful with this one because I have room for quite a large piece here, but I want to be careful not to make something that destroys the view of the actual manor, but while thinking about it, it might be okay as it would heavily break up the symmetry of the manor. My primary options are once again a tree or a statue, but it's a tough choice. A willow type tree would be really interesting, drooping over the courtyard, but that might be a bit too big or in the way, and if I did a statue it might be physically too close to the manor, as well as I have no idea what I would make the statue of. I don't know, a lot of other options on top of these, and then so many options if I do go with one of the former. I'll figure something out though. It has to be a strong statement piece, you know, so I'm not going to rush it. I think that's everything to point out here. Fireflies everywhere. There's just one more thing I want to address before I wrap up, and that involves the water, and essentially finishing this desaturation effect. What I am about to show isn't really an inquiry to the world of if I should or should not, or me asking if it's too far from vanilla or whatever. It's something I want to show you now that I couldn't get uploaded into the world for today, but right now it's a highly likely thing to happen. And to show what it is, I need to quickly hop onto a world backup. In this backup, I have edited this world so that as you walk into the courtyard, and only in the courtyard, the biome has been changed into a pale garden. And as you can see, it almost completely changes the feel of the courtyard, and it is now truly an area devoid of color. The standout change the biome makes is the sky, completely replacing the blue with a gray sky, as well as adding a fog tint to faraway blocks to reduce the saturation on what you can still see from outside the courtyard. There's two other big changes worth noting, first being the water, still a little blue, but that's okay as long as it has this desaturated filter on it so it doesn't stand out so much, and it is believably colorless. I may even be stupid, and it is in fact devoid of color, but I think there's still a little bit of blue in it, and that's alright. The other very important change relates to the vegetation. There's not a lot of options for vegetation without being in a pale biome. Tall grass and everything like that is still green, even placed on pale moss in a standard biome, which pretty much makes a large portion of vegetation blocks unusable, and I really don't like how the pale leaves look on their own like this, and the other option of eye blossoms quickly become repetitive. So set up at my board of lifelessness, on this side are my options for vegetation before changing to a pale biome. Not very wide. The hanging is nice, and I forgot about the coral, but overall, it's the same kind of shade all around, not giving a lot of variety. On the right, though, is everything that changes in the pale biome. The water, tall grass, vines, 5-leaf variants, the top of grass block, leaf litters, ferns, and these new bushes. Also, weirdly enough, if you get pink petals. Their stems change to gray too, but I can't use those because they're pink. The only thing I feel is missing here, though, is a 2 tall flower type in black and white. But otherwise, there's so much block variety here that is otherwise being locked away behind the biome. The tall grass and oak leaves alone make a huge difference for what I can do in this courtyard, and mixing in everything else will just make things way better for this desaturated courtyard concept. So yeah, between that, the water, and the gray sky, it's hard for me to be convinced of doing anything other than editing the actual server to make this courtyard a pale garden. Like, it's kind of crazy that this black and white effect that you're seeing right now is technically completely vanilla done, without any filters or me going in and editing the video to look like this. Hopefully I'll be able to upload this onto the world soon, though. Uploading a world is a pain for Roams. I really need to switch to a private host, because to upload I need to prune the file size, troubleshoot why data packs aren't working, make sure nothing else breaks or corrupts while I do that. It's a whole process, but it's very much on the do as soon as possible to-do list. Anyways, that's all for random thoughts for today. I have some holiday festivities to get to, so if you made it to this point, I hope you have enjoyed. Please consider leaving feedback, especially for the world editing thing I mentioned. I'm still interested if anyone has thoughts about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all later.